Yeah, I don't know about you, but I've realized like I'm starting to get a little bit older because of the interest I'm in, and like I'm starting to be more dad. Do you have things that you're doing specifically that have made you feel like you're getting old and you're like really taking in the dad life?
Yeah, I actually do agree with that. I have a couple that come to mind right away, but I would say that the one that comes to mind most recently, and this is like being a Wisconsin dad. This is on a Friday night, going 45 minutes out of your way to hit up a fish fry. Like that's something my parents used to do. I never imagined that being a thing in my life. I did that like 2 weekends ago.
See, the problem I'm having is a couple of things. Number one, I love these New Balance shoes I have. I'm not even kidding. I'm not making this up. Two, I am just into this. Apparently, I've always hated history, and now I'm just into this American history podcast. I don't know why, but I'm loving it. And number three, maybe one of the worst, but if I go to a Home Depot or a Menards or a Fleet Farm, I cannot help but to like stop and look at the lawnmowers and talk about buying one of them.
I want to ask you more about this history podcast, but I feel like I'd fall asleep during it. So since you brought up the lawnmowers, over under 3.5 beers while you're mowing the lawn.
Oh, way under for me. I can't do mine's not a push. Mine's a push, so you can't. It's too hard.
I'm way over. Let's get this podcast started and let's get loaded because this is the Loaded Box Podcast,
where we never finish first because we finish last.
I'm pretty excited for this episode, DJ. However, I need to ask that entire intro. You had your hand up like you were asking a question, and I didn't know whether or not, like you wanted to like start over, if you were blocking something, like what was going on there? You had your hand up like you were a kid in school.
I'm a little worried, and I'm hoping people didn't see it, but my son was literally behind me naked right on these stairs. Like I saw a glance of him, and I looked back, and he's getting ready for a bath, and he was naked, so I was trying to block it.
The funny thing is, in our Loaded Box Twitter DM, we joke about getting canceled. You might have just got us canceled, depending on who was watching that.
Yeah, I'm not excited about it, and we're live too, so I'm like not sure how to like handle it. So I was like trying to put my arm out because it's like, yeah, I'm not having my son naked on the podcast, so I'm a little bit worried.
You know what? Here's the deal. I think at a certain age, yeah, it's going to be a little on the 50-50 side, but you can't do anything about it. We're live. We roll with it. That's what we do on the Loaded Box Podcast.
Yeah.
I need your confidence to raise here. Take a big drink and then let's get rolling. All right. For all you just non-watchers, just listeners, he took his big drink. Let's get rolling because today's episode, we have singled out 5 NFL draft prospects and we're identifying their ideal landing spots for them when it comes to the draft in regards to Dynasty League rookie drafts. We're also going to identify some not so ideal landing spots, which would drop these players in our rankings. So DJ, we've strategically picked these guys because certain guys like a Kyle Pitts, a Jamar Chase, you're going to want them, even if they end up at a not so ideal landing spot, it might drop them a little bit. But these are some tweeners that could really see a nice bump if they land at a good spot, but could also fall back a little bit if they don't land in such a good spot. So let's start out with the first one. We're going to nominate Kenneth Gainwell, the running back out of Memphis. I want you to first go with your ideal landing spot for him.
So my ideal landing spot, and it's funny because I chose not to look at yours before I put these in just to not influence myself. And I thought I honestly thought I didn't think there's any way we would have a same or similar one. I know you had 2 here. But I chose Atlanta, and I specifically talked about like they don't have Todd Gurley. They brought in Mike Davis. Mike Davis, to me, he's not an every down back. Yeah, he was. Right. He looked great in Carolina for a little bit, but I don't even know that he's even a first and second down back alone. I think he's almost like situational at this point. And I think if Gainwell can come into this offense, he would split 50-50. You know, he would be out there on passing downs, obviously, but he would also get carries, and they would, you know, strategically run them in and out. And I think there's a potential that he, kind of like Antonio Gibson, can just take over that starting running back role. And I'm just imagining if the Falcons take Kyle Pitts in the first round, you've got Julio, Ridley, Pitts, and then Gainwell with those weapons. That is just a dirty offense, and he's the 4th one that you're having to pay attention to. And Matt Ryan has all these options. I hate Matt Ryan, but he's going to rack up yards, and he's going to get some receiving touchdowns for sure.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I mean, basically what you said is what I said, so I don't need to add too much more. I do think that at the end of the day, Atlanta tries to land one of the top three. When I talk about the top three, obviously Javonte Williams, Najee Harris, Travis Etienne. But if they don't, the fact that they just cut Ito Smith kind of makes me think that's why they're doing it. They're really going to try to land one of these guys. But man, there's analysts out there that think Kenny Gainwell kind of belongs in this grouping anyways. And man, that production that he had 2 years ago at Memphis, second to none. It's unbelievable. His yards per carry was top notch. His yards per catch were top notch. His touchdowns were off the charts. And if there's anything we learned from Antonio Gibson, who Gainwell was getting carries over, it's that the running backs from Memphis can come in from day one and light it up. So is there a chance that he has to split carries right away in Atlanta? Sure. I actually hope that's probably what it would end up turning to be. But even long term, I can't think of a much more ideal fit than Atlanta. My runner-up, you alluded to it, and it's scrolling on the bottom line for those on Twitter and YouTube, is the Jaguars. And I sort of like him as a complement to James Robinson. I think their games gel well. And if you remember, the Jaguars signed Carlos Hyde this offseason, and I don't honestly think he'll get some carries. He'll eat into the workload. But at the end of the day, he's a one-year guy that's going to take some reps this year. You don't have to worry about that as a long-term impact. So if you're running James Robinson and Kenneth Gainwell, let's just say year 2, 3 down the line, both of those guys have the opportunity to be fantasy football starters, especially if you look at this offense. Like if they build correctly around Trevor Lawrence, it's weird to say it about Jacksonville. I feel terrible saying this, but it has the potential to not be a terrible offense. It could be a team that you actually want fantasy guys from. So yeah, Atlanta, Jacksonville. Do you have any thoughts on the Jacksonville edition?
I don't want anybody there because I have James Robinson in Dynasty, so I'm good with where they're at right now.
I can get down with that. What's your not so ideal landing spot here for Gainwell?
I almost said yours. My not so ideal landing spot is the Houston Texans. Obviously, these don't have to be first round picks. They're just landing spots. That's why I'm choosing. And we've nominated the players that we've nominated because I don't want them to be guaranteed first round picks. I want second, third round guys potentially. Here's the Texans with David Johnson. So I just think there is a potential that someone like this could land there because David Johnson, Mark Ingram, there aren't the answers at running back. The Texans are spending just way too much money on these old, washed-up running backs.
It's funny, too, because they brought in Phillip Lindsay. It's like they're just collecting a bunch of not even has-beens, but just guys that are kind of good.
So they need to bring in somebody young so they can just get rid of these guys, in the future here, 2022 or whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, is there a chance they keep all three of these guys? I would be surprised.
No chance.
Also, with all the questions with Deshaun Watson and whether he's going to play or not going to play for multiple reasons at this point, that also takes a significant hit. I mean, he's just not going to. One way or the other, he's just not going to play for the Houston Texans this year. And it doesn't matter. He's just not playing football one way or the other to be for them. Obviously, he was everything for this offense. He really did 100%. Do everything. And just not to mention, I mean, heading on to Deshaun Watson doing everything, it's because his offensive line was just trash. So then they're going into an offensive line if he gets drafted there. That's really bad without the quarterback who would open up any sort of, success in that offense. If he goes to Houston, to me, I'm just not going to be the guy that drafts him.
Yeah, I don't know how likely Houston is, but at the same time, it's Houston. Anything is on the table. And I get it. Like, Gainwell is a playmaker. Like, why wouldn't they target him? Yeah. But, man, they've just been collecting running backs. But like you said, are any of those guys long-term solutions? Probably not. So Gainwell probably would be the best future guy to have there. My not-so-ideal landing spot was the New York Jets. So let's just say that the Jets are satisfied with P. Ryan and Tevin Coleman, and they don't go with one of the big three. Let's just call them that. And they pull the trigger on a guy like Gainwell. That running back room just turns into a muddy fantasy football situation that you want no part of, especially in year one. I think moving forward, Gainwell would obviously have the most long-term potential success, being probably the highest draft pick of that. Tevin Coleman, I think at this point in his career, he's just going to bounce around from place to place. He's not going to be a huge factor in fantasy. I just think we can find so many better landing spots for Gainwell. And I like Kenneth Gainwell. I mean, you put on his tape. There's probably only, I would say, 7 or 8 running backs that I actually spent a good quality amount of time on. I'm not a huge fan of the class in general. Gainwell, outside of the top 3, man, is hands down, like, he's my clear-cut number 4. I love him. I do not want any part of the New York Jets for him, though. Any thoughts on the Jets? Going to be hard to disagree with that one.
It's tough because, I try to think about the future, and if Zach Wilson, I like the wide receivers. They've got new coaching staff in there, so it is hard to make a decision on that one. I just know I specifically don't like the Texans ever going forward.
All right. No, can't blame you on that one. Let's move on to your juicy landing spot for Rondale Moore.
All right, my juicy landing spot, our juicy landing spot. To me, it's easy. I'm going to go with, I'll say the Green Bay Packers, but I will also add the Tampa Bay Buccaneers into this. I think, obviously, I've been talking about Rondale. I talk about Elijah, but if he goes into an offense, obviously that's already very successful and very talented. He shoots up. He has to shoot up your dynasty draft rankings. I mean, he might sneak up into your first round if he ends up with Aaron Rodgers, if not early second in Rondale Moore. And the same thing with Tampa Bay. It would be luxury at that point. Tom Brady's offense with Godwin and all those guys.
Right.
Antonio Brown's going to be going somewhere else, I assume. Who knows what's going to end up with him? But if Rondale Moore comes in there, it's a luxury. It's an offense they have a way or a thought of how they want to use him. And it'll be very specific. I think it'll be 2 different ways. I think Green Bay will use him one way. Tampa Bay would do more as a slot. Green Bay would use him in the slot, but also running in that jet sweep, handing the ball off to him more often than what Tampa Bay would be. But just going in one of those 2, and I think it's kind of obvious because they're 2 very successful football teams. I would be trying to break my arm to get him at this point.
Yeah, I can't hate on that. That's my exact same landing spot as the Packers. I think in order for Rondale Moore to find that fantasy success, they're going to need to find a team that doesn't necessarily scheme specific plays for him, but rather a team that gets the ball out quick, lets receivers work underneath. And that's exactly what I think the Packers will do with him, and they will do it well with him. So that's a guy that you can use in a sense for fantasy because you're not scheming a way to get him open. He's just become part of the offense in that role.
Yeah.
Where other teams, I think, would have to scheme a way to get him the ball just because they don't run that type of offense as successfully as the Packers do. So I see Rondale Moore as like an early second rounder in most dynasty leagues. But man, if he were to go to Green Bay, I'm not opposed to taking him late first round in a dynasty league. Are you on the same path with that?
Absolutely. And in Green Bay, he works out good because their offense now is like San Francisco's, if we talk about, it's based off of deception. They run a lot of the same stuff, but it's all based off of deception. So they make your moves. They make your eyes move based off of guys running across the line of scrimmage, sprinting all around, and they just do multiple plays off of that. They do play action, they hand it off, they jet sweep it, they just do everything off of that. So you don't know where the ball's going to go, and if they've play actioned it with Aaron Jones 1,000 times, and they've hit you with that play action, and then the next thing you know, they're handing it to Moore, and they're already coming down field, and Moore's coming the opposite way. He's got tons of open field. It's just it works out perfectly. And
they're not catching him with his speed and elusiveness. Yeah. If you wondered why DJ was laughing, if you're doing audio only, it's because old writer Ryan commented in and said that White Claws were greater than Truly, because if you can see what DJ's drinking, he's drinking a Truly, which I think it's truly funny because I started with Busch Light, which I absolutely had to. That's a dad joke right there for you, DJ. And my backup, when I go to my second beer, I'm actually going to drink a Vizzy because I worked out today and I was like craving some antioxidant vitamin C. I don't know what that means, but I'm going with it.
So the only reason I chose the Truly, though, is because I have 3 bottles and our beginning of our podcast is typically cracking a can. So I didn't really have a choice.
Excuses. I like it.
Strategic.
What's your not so ideal landing spot for Rondale Moore?
So I wanted to go like outside the box. I was hoping to just choose something that you didn't. So I was looking through it. To me, it's the Indianapolis Colts, and it comes down to a reason. Like, quite frankly, I don't outside their run game. I just don't trust this offense especially with their first year with Carson Wentz, and I think their like inability to consistently throw well I just don't trust anything about that passing game. I can't do well. I just can't do it. I can't. If he goes there, I am gonna just let somebody. Again, this is another case. This is what this podcast is about. If they land somewhere, my not ideal pick is I'm not gonna pick them. I'm gonna let somebody else grab them, and I just don't see them having much of a future. I think in those situations.
Right. My not so ideal for Rondale Moore is actually quite a few people's ideal situation. I just don't, when I do the math on it, I don't like it. My not so ideal is the New Orleans Saints.
What kind of math?
First, that's new math. That's how you do that. Bo Burnham.
Gotcha.
I feel like the Saints kind of have enough of these kind of guys. You're like your Traquan Smith, your little Jordan Humphrey, your Alvin Kamara, just guys that you can get the ball in space and do things with. I feel like the Saints would benefit more with a guy like Terrace Marshall or a different kind of slot player like Elijah Moore, who can just do a little bit more from that position and does different things than what Rondale Moore does. Also, from a fantasy perspective, think about who's going to be the quarterback for the Saints. It's Jameis Winston now. It's the guy that's going down.
Is it?
Well, let's just hypothetically say that it is for the sake of my argument. It's not Drew Brees who's doing all these timing patterns and getting the ball out quick. It's Jameis Winston who's going to be holding on to it, giving his receivers opportunities to make the play, downfield, longer routes. I don't think that's Rondale Moore's strength. We saw last time Winston was a starting gig, Godwin popped off. Mike Evans popped off. Hell, Jameis Winston popped off. Rondale Moore would get some, but he's not going to pop off the way that those other receivers did. Like, it's not going to be this match made in heaven. They're completely different players. So I don't see that type of playmaker in Rondale Moore. I don't think it's a good fit. So if he goes there, that's when I'm targeting more, probably more so in the early to mid second round. But like you said, probably an area where I might end up just passing on him.
Interesting. I don't know. I like, again, if anybody in an offense that obviously Drew Brees isn't anymore, that I guess maybe we could be tricked. Maybe our brains just all will think Saints offense is just going to continue to be good because that's what we know about them. Because that's what our dumb brains do when it comes to football. The Saints offense has been good for so long. We haven't seen it without Drew Brees. We're just assuming it's going to continue to be really good. Actually, I do love Jameis Winston, so I do think it. But I also think we're skewed by the fact that we did it with the Patriots. I just assumed the Patriots would continue to be good, and they just weren't. Like it's just our dumb brains. Like you can't recognize right away a team that's about to fall off, so you just assume they're going to pick up where they always have, even if a Hall of Famer leaves. Yeah, not always the case.
And I think the Saints maybe have a bit of more of an advantage when you compare it to like the Patriots after Brady left, because you think of Bill Belichick as a schemer and, in my opinion, probably a better defensive-minded coach than offensive-minded, where you think of Sean Payton and it's like, well, he's kind of like one of the original new era offensive like genius-minded coaches. So maybe there's a little bit more to that where they won't struggle as much offensively. But DJ, I think you've got a new toy you want to play with and show on the podcast.
I'm so nervous for this, but I'm going to go ahead and just butcher it here. Support for the Loaded Box podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who's the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. 2 million? I don't even know 2 million people. 2 million men worldwide. Too many people. Honestly, there's too many people in this world. We need a new plague.
That's actually what I thought you were going with that. It's supported by too many men. Like, that's where it was going.
Too many men. We have an exclusive offer for all of our listeners. 20% off plus free shipping with the code LOADED at manscaped.com. If you look below, Ben has it highlighted. Manscaped hooked us up with a bunch of tools and formulations from their Perfect Package 3.0 kit. We got this my favorite thing, the lawnmower here. Let me ask you a question, Ben. Have you ever shaved your balls with just a regular razor that you use for your face?
Here's the deal. Before I got that lawnmower 3.0, I was always scared too, because I'm just like, you know what? That thing's been on my face. Now I'm going to put it back on my balls, and I'm going to put it back on my face. Feel like I'm kissing myself, and I wasn't about that life.
See, and you probably made the right decision. I didn't have a choice. I like to be clean shaven. I didn't have a choice. I didn't realize the difference between the Lawnmower 3.0 and my razor. Like, I didn't realize how good this would be because honestly, and this is true story. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys a little story. It's going to get a little personal about me. I would shave myself with my razor, and the first couple of times, I legitimately would like cut myself, like the base, base of my shaft, my balls. If you have to be like surgical precision with something like that to shave it, and then you just can't get it as clean as you want. I swear to you, my wife was so excited when this got here. She used it before I did. And then I used it, and I'm not kidding you. You can just shove it against your balls and just mow. It's literally, you can mow your lawn there. It's crazy. And I was so scared right away. I was hesitant. And then once I got confident, I could just go. I could go. Not a single cut, and it's clean. And I put some ball deodorant on it. I was good to go after that.
Do you think do I need to change that up there? We're talking about it as Manscaped, but you even said your wife got a little usage out of it. Should we call it Womanscaped?
It's a little Womanscaped. Yeah. I mean, it's good for all brands, honestly, at this time. Like we said, Manscaped has created the best ball hair trimmer ever. And I truly believe it. The Lawnmower 3.0, it's done so much for me. In addition, this trimmer, let's check this out. And listen to the noise first, how smooth this sounds. Oh my God. That is like humming smooth. Like you're confident with that noise.
That's better than that lawnmower you were checking out at Menards or whatever you said in the intro.
It is. It comes with a light though, that LED light, because it is dark down there, which I didn't realize until I used this, how handy that came in. And it's waterproof, so you can do it in the shower and the hair just goes down the drain. The Lawnmower 3.0 comes inside the brand new Perfect package, which comes with everything you need to trim, cut, whatever it is. It comes with the crop preserver. The crop preserver is great. So if you get a little sweaty moving around throughout the day, you need to sneak away in the bathroom at work or whatever. Oh, there it is. You spray a little bit on your balls, refresh that up, and
or your face.
Chafing. And then after the shower in the morning, you use the crop preserver, the basically ball deodorant. It's amazing. Anti-chafing, get your balls smelly, use it on your armpits. You might as well have some for your balls. That might be the stinkiest area. It's hidden the most. It's probably the warmest down there. It's great. Crop preserver keeps your balls from sweating, smelling, sticking, all of that good stuff. It's the total package. And you know what else, Ben? I was so impressed with Manscaped. I went back on there and I bought the refined cologne. Because I'm like, let's do the whole package. Let's do the ball deodorant and let's just look at this beautiful case it comes in. So I spray that on myself, give myself a little spritzer. So I give myself a spritzer on the balls. I give myself a spritzer on the body. And honestly, my wife gets a little bit worried when I leave the house every day. She gets a little worried.
As she should. Pun intended-ish. The packaging that stuff comes in, granted that it's for your package, if you caught that, is remarkable. I've never felt more ready to be a young man again than when I opened up that kit. It was mind-blowing. I got goosebumps.
Look, I got my vaccine. COVID's over. I'm out the clubs. I'm smelling good. I'm looking good. Manscaped's got me rolling. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code LOADED at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code LOADED. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Your balls will thank you.
Oh, yeah. I can't disagree with anything you said. I wonder if our boy Mac Jones uses Manscaped. Well, if he heard that read, I guarantee he was going to give it a try. And if he did, use promo code LOADED, get that free shipping, get that 20% off. So, DJ, speaking of our boy Mac Jones, what's your ideal landing spot?
My ideal landing spot, and I wanted to say San Fran, but that was too easy, and I don't think he's going to end up there, and that was boring. I'm going to go with New England.
Okay.
If this is Bill Belichick's guy, and they do move up to get him, and he gets to time to sit while Cam Newton struggles, I'm on board. Sorry, I love Cam Newton. Well, I had to throw a little diss at him there, but I truly think Cam Newton's going to start the season out, see what they can do with him. If he struggles, I'm assuming they're going to get some quarterback that can come in, and it's not going to be what's his name that they had last year. Freaking guy sucked too. What was his name? I'm blanking on it. What was what's the backup quarterback for the Patriots? God, he was so
for
bad.
A while there, they had Brian Hoyer, but Jared Stidham.
Stidham, yeah, Stidham was crap. But Look, Matt Jones, he's not a mobile quarterback, but he's extremely accurate, and it feels kind of like Bill has had a guy like that before. That's not super mobile, but super accurate. Maybe really good football IQ. Never heard of him, won a few Super Bowls. It might fit that Bill Belichickian offense perfectly.
Ran a 40-yard dash with a parachute connected to him.
Exactly. So I would be excited if that was his guy and he was like, let me get this guy. I know what to do with him. I would buy into it.
Dude, if he drops to like that 7, 8, 9 range, I'm not going to sit here and say that's my prediction as a trade, but it would not surprise me whatsoever if New England trades up and does that.
Somebody will trade up and get Mac Jones. I'm confident of it.
Well, here's the only reason I'm not confident is because I still buy into the hype, DJ, that he's going to San Francisco. And from a fantasy perspective, I like the fit. If you're going to give me a second choice, I do like your Patriots pick, but I think my second choice would be going to Washington, sit the year behind Fitzpatrick, and then see how it plays out in year 2. But if he goes to San Francisco, even if Jimmy G stays there this year, I think it's just a matter of time until Mac Jones takes over. Surrounded by a good offensive mind with the coach, Kyle Shanahan, skill players, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. He's set up for success already, literally from day one. If he can step in and get it together, he's set up for success. I don't think Mac Jones is the type of quarterback that's turning into a top 5 fantasy quarterback, regardless of where he goes. But if he goes to San Francisco, I think he's a guy that you can put on your team. You can start. I wouldn't even want to say like if you're in a pinch, but he's a guy that you're okay starting with. You might want a better quarterback down the road. But geez, injury, bye weeks, if he gets on a hot streak, I could justify a mid second round pick on him, mid to late maybe, depending on where the other guys go in the draft. I don't mind it.
That'd be a little early. I was just think if you're not in like a super flex league and you're just in your standard dynasty, blah, 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 I wouldn't. He's not a second round pick in that type of like the league that me and you that existed. I wouldn't take him that
like a single quarterback.
Yeah.
It's going to depend on how your roster is shaped. I'm just saying, like, I think that would be like my max mid second, late second. That's where I would have him going. Do you have a not so ideal landing spot for Mac?
Well, I sure hope I do, because that's what this fucking podcast is. Sure hope I do, because that's the podcast is to have an ideal and not ideal landing spot. So if I don't, then I just haven't prepared at all. And I usually don't prepare, but I'd still have somebody.
I would say you pride yourself sometimes on your lack of preparedness. So I thought, you know what, maybe you forgot to do it for Mac Jones.
Always have an answer though. Yeah, not ideal landing spot. Easy. The Chicago Bears. If the Bears move up to get Mac Jones, which is an absolute possibility because there's zero chance Andy Dalton. I don't know why people aren't talking about, maybe they are and I'm just not seeing it, but people aren't talking about that as much as I think they should be. Zero chance Andy Dalton is the answer. Cut me out if he lands there. Chicago is where quarterbacks go to die. That's just a fact. Just prove me wrong. Just prove me wrong. I dare you. You can't. You just can't do it. Green Bay would be picking on this guy for years. Like every wide receiver, I think people have given up. Khalil Mack regrets every second of being there. Allen Robinson's like, why the fuck did I do this? Every person that's came there in free agency is like, both of these guys had opportunities to go to Green Bay, and they're shooting themselves in the head for it.
In the head? Usually it's the foot.
Yeah, that's how bad it is.
They took it to the next level.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm a little envious of your not so ideal destination. I think it more than rivals. I had 2. I had the Lions and the Broncos, but man, I think I like the Bears even more than that. But just to emphasize why I don't like Detroit and Denver.
The Lions are going to be so bad, dude.
It's going to be a rough little
I keep thinking about it.
To get over here.
Yeah.
I don't think it's likely that he goes to Detroit, but if for some reason he goes there, he sits behind Goff, that's already not ideal. Let's just throw it out there and say Goff does okay. It'd be a little while before he would get a chance. Like, I don't want to, it's not the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers thing, but that's the best comparison I have right now. Like it would be a while before he'd get in, but I also don't like him going to Denver because if you're pairing him with a quarterback you just took in the draft 2 years ago I think he was a second round pick. If you're doing that, the same thing I said earlier, you're just muddying the waters.
Who's the second round pick?
Drew Lock. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
If you're pairing Mac Jones and you're keeping Drew Lock and you're going to make him battle it out, I know the whole cliche, iron sharpens irons, and you're going to get the best one to come through. I just think at this point, it's mud splashing against other mud, and you're not going to know what you're going to have in either, because you're going to end up having this urge to, once one struggles, you're going to want to go to the other one. And if you're relying on that as from a fantasy perspective, you're fucked.
Here's a little hint, or here's a little clue for everybody. If there's a team out there that says, this is for just redraft leagues, not dynasty in general, but if there's a team out there, coach out there that comes up and says we're having a true quarterback battle, both those quarterbacks suck. They suck. Tough. You like, we have this tendency as fantasy football analysts to talk ourselves into somebody. I do it with Tyrod Taylor, done with that. But we have our tendency to talk ourselves into somebody who's in a battle, who just isn't actually that good, but we're like, no, this guy can be good, and they suck every time. Because if they're in that true quarterback battle, they're trash. Just plan on not drafting that person. I'm giving you a free one here.
I think you need the ultimate outlier situation for a true quarterback battle to be productive for someone, and it would have to be like
not counting rookies. Yeah,
it'd have to it's rookie versus vet. Like,
throw out Justin Herbert and Russell Wilson because they were rookies, things like that. But if it's like a true
Nick Foles,
if it was Andy Dalton versus Mitch Trubisky, or Nick Foles, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's perfectly said. I don't need to expand on it. DJ, this was the one I probably struggled with the most. I'm going to flip it up here. It's a guy that should have come out last year. It's Oklahoma State's Chuba Hubbard. Let's start with your juicy landing spot for him as I crack open that Vizzy.
This should be a surprise to you. I've been saying it the whole time. My ideal landing spot, if they don't take a running back in the first round, let's say they take, I don't know, some other position of need that they feel, like an offensive lineman or something like that. It's Steelers. I froze there for a second, but the Steelers, I think, is a perfect spit.
Perfect spit. That's what you just did into the microphone.
I'm out of here. Perfect spot for Chuba. Chuba struggled this year at Oklahoma State, as you mentioned. He should have left the year before. But if he lands in Pittsburgh in day 2, second, third round, whatever it is, I would strongly consider moving him up to late first. I'm not kidding you. I would to early second or late first round. There's not a running back there I like. And this is the type of offense I can see him being the most successful in, because they like to run downhill. They like to have a fullback. The only caveat, and I know that people are going to say this, the only caveat is, I get it. Big Ben is too old to play out of shotgun under the center. He hates playing under the center. He wants to run out of shotgun. So that may play against him. But at this point, get rid of Big Ben. Do what they do best. Run the ball downhill. Give the ball to a running back like Chuba, like the Browns do with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And go back to that type of offense, because that's where they operate best. They play good defense. They run the ball down your throat. I think that would be a really good spot for Chuba.
I'll expand on it later, but if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, you'll see the scroll and you'll see that I have multiple teams that are my not so ideal spots, and the Steelers are one of them. So I'll expand on that, but I'll hit on my ideal spot first. And like I said, when we first started talking about him, I struggled with this one, but I sort of like New Orleans. Latavius Murray, obviously the primary guy behind Kamara. He's 31. He's not going to be around much longer. I think Hubbard has that skill set that could be a good pairing with Kamara. He'll get decent usage. He won't get overloaded. They're not going to have to rush him in or anything. They already got the 2 guys ahead of him. And I know this is a fantasy perspective, but with Dynasty, you got to look a little bit farther into the future than just year 1. But if he goes to New Orleans, he's never going to get RB1 duties. Like, that's not going to be his jam. No one's taking that from Alvin Kamara. But I'm actually not sure that RB1 duties will ever be in Chuba Hubbard's future. So maxing him out as a team's RB2 is, I personally think, the way that you can maximize him as a fantasy player. So doing that in New Orleans is going to be better than most any other location you can do it with. And think about Kamara. He's always paired well with another pretty decent running back. Think Mark Ingram. Think Latavius Murray. Both of those guys were fantasy relevant while they played with Kamara. I think this is how you're going to maximize Hubbard in the league. He could be that guy. There's not a lot of pressure right away. I still don't think I'm taking him any higher than late second round, because like I said, at the end of the day, I think he maxes out as a team's RB2, which when you put it in a fantasy perspective, I know we're seeing more running back by committees right now, but New Orleans would be that team where mid to late second, I would take a flyer on him. I'm really down on him right now. Still wish I would have seen how things would have played out had he have come out last year. But I think maxing him out right now here in an RB2 role in New Orleans would be the best way to play it out with him.
Well, most of the time, I think your analysis is pretty bad. I think this might be your best.
Something.
I think this might be your best analysis of all time. Gambling, fantasy, whatever. This might be your best. If you're looking at him the way you're looking at him, which I can get on board with.
Thank you.
Yeah, that offense with Alvin Kamara and doing that role could be his peak fantasy, and just purely off of like Trent Richardson touchdowns, like basically like that type of role, and every once in a while with Kamara, the way they use him, like Aaron Jones is using, like the Packers are using with Aaron Jones. AJ Dillon needs to also be in that type of talk this year because Aaron Jones is going to be used more like Kamara more and more and more, and AJ Dillon's going to be on the ball on the field way more than people expect. I do like that take. I guess I was just looking at it as like, where do I think he has his best chance of starting, putting up yards and scoring touchdowns? Steelers, who have just nothing right now.
Yeah, I went next level. And if you don't mind, which I'm sure you don't, I'm going to cut up what you just said there about totally just being on board with my pick. And I'm just going to throw it at you every time you disagree with me.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So we did their ideal landing spots. I think you still need to do their not so ideal.
So I talked about this team with Kenneth Gainwell being his ideal landing spot. Opposite. Yeah, not ideal landing spot for Chuba Hubbard. I'm going to call him Chuba. I just don't feel like calling him Chuba. Chuba Hubbard. I just can't do it. Like I've tried to fake it and pronounce it, but Chuba Hubbard is way better, so he's going to be Chuba Hubbard for me. That's it. I'm done saying that. It's not me. I felt unnatural. Like I don't feel like me saying that, so fucking throw that out the window. Chuba Hubbard. Replace every time I said Chuba with Chuba. Chuba. I'm replacing all those right now.
It's like Tyler Tannehill.
Yeah, I
feels right off the tongue. Yeah,
Chuba Hubbard, because it feels cool, it sounds cool. He doesn't fit in this office. I just feel the opposite. It's not the right fit. It's too much of like a Swift. It's almost like the type of offense, it's like a ground and pound, like the Steelers are, like the Browns are. Falcons are opposite, the Packers are opposite. They're like the smooth, high flying, this on ice, but on turf type of team where it's like they're moving down fast. I don't think Hubbard. Yes, I don't think Hubbard. I don't think Hubbard fits well in that type of high flying offense. I don't think he has a role in that. So, and they already have Mike Davis there, who I don't think really has a role in that offense. That's why I think Kenneth Gainwell is a great fit for them. So, yeah, I just don't like him here. Don't like it at all. It doesn't feel right to me. It just doesn't. It just when I thought about them and when I saw that, I was like, yeah, I would hate that matchup.
Chuba Hubbard doesn't use Manscaped. A guy named it Chuba Hubbard would 100% use Manscaped.
Has to.
So I said my not so ideal landing spot here is take your pick. I've got multiple teams, but the three I emphasized here: Miami, New York Jets, Pittsburgh Steelers. Like I said, I'm just not a huge fan. I think it's going to take that unique landing spot. I think if he lands in one of these three places specifically, he's going to be asked to do too much. It's kind of like you said, you're relying on him as that RB1 role. I don't think that's it for him. I think he's going, like his max is going to be some teams really good RB2. And I don't see it there. Like you're going to bring him into Miami and pair him with what happened.
I just read a tweet. I shouldn't be reading tweet, but it like related to me. And it's just so funny.
Yeah, you had to be there. Geography joke.
Yeah, sorry.
So what I was saying, so you're going to pair Hubbard with like what? Savad Ahmed and Myles Gaskin. That's just muddy. I don't like that. You're going to bring him into a Steelers room. Ahmed. You're going to bring him into the Steelers with McFarland and Benny Smell. Don't like that. The Jets with the guys I said, all you're doing is a smelly situation.
It was so dumb how you laughed at it a second time too, and it just became it funny.
It was funny. I figured that that sentence needed some of that ball deodorant, and then
there you go.
Off. Like I said, you're throwing with the Jets with Tevin Coleman and LaMichael Pirine. Like you're just getting like just muddy situations. Don't like it. Get me out of there. I need him to go to a spot where there's someone established already. It sounds weird, but that's my take. Sticking to it.
Have it. So the tweet I read was like, and I don't know if it's because I have severe ADD or what it is, but I don't know. you probably run into this situation. How many times have you met somebody brand new and they tell you their name and you forget it is that they say it?
Every single time I meet someone brand new.
I don't know why I can't do it, because there's people out there like remember your name after hearing it once for years. If I'm being introduced to somebody brand new, I will forget their name 0.1 second after they tell me. And I think I don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, you're spot on with that. I was told, because I've struggled with that for years. I sound like an infomercial right now. I was told that when you meet somebody for the first time, you're supposed to look them in the eye. They say their name. So let's just say you meet me, shake my hand. Your name is Ryan. I'm supposed to
shake hands anymore.
Okay, you bump elbows. I've seen people do that. That's another bad thing. Oh, let's bump elbows.
Let's do it.
You're supposed to say, like, nice to meet you, Ryan. Like, you say their name back to them immediately after they say it, and that's supposed to help you. I haven't personally tried it. I haven't taken my own advice. Throwing it out there, seeing if you like it.
I think usually it's like somebody that my wife knows that I've never met. And I just have no interest in them. So they introduce me, but I'm already like moving on to whatever ice cream I'm about to eat next because it's at like a carnival.
No, I was going to say something similar, but not very. It depends on how many drinks I've had as well.
Yeah, sure.
I just new people. I've been boozing.
I fucking hate people's names, honestly.
Chuba. Let's move on to another. Well, I like Rashad though. Rashad Bateman is a great name. So let's talk about him. I'm going to flip him up on the bottom there. What is your juicy landing spot for Rashad Bateman?
All right. My ideal landing spot for Rashad Bateman is Buffalo Bills. I truly believe that Bateman needs to go into an offense that is like already good in order for him to succeed. And I obviously a lot of players could go into a good team and succeed, but they're, like Justin Jefferson is a really good wide receiver who went to a team that's not that great, but he still freaking succeeded. Rashad Bateman needs to go to a team that's established. And I'm going to tell you guys a secret I haven't told people. I've never said this. I've never said it to you, Ben. I hate Bateman as a prospect.
What?
Hate him. Average size, average speed, bad vertical. I had a higher vertical than he did.
Have you seen the stats where he's shrunk? Like if you look at like where he was listed at high school and then college and what he's listed
6
at
feet
now,
tall.
He's gradually shrinking. He's getting old fast.
So average size, average speed, not a good vertical at all. Like his vertical was 36 in high school. I had a 38-inch vertical. Honestly, I'm bragging about myself.
I had 39.
Average hands. He has trouble concentrating. It's just one area. The only area he does well is route running, and obviously that's great. But there's just too much. There's too much average to him. Like Devontae is not fast. Great Devontae Adams. Not
there you
fast.
Go. Nailed it.
Great route runner, but one of the best leapers in the NFL as well. Like obviously he separates, but he also can go up over anybody and make a play. I'm going to do this. Do you remember who I hated like 2 to 3 years that the Patriots drafted?
N'Keal Harry?
I think he's N'Keal Harry.
Oh, wow. That's bold.
I mean, not as big and slow as him, but I get the same feel. Like he would really need to be in the right fit. And I feel like the greatest fit would be Buffalo. It would have to be a team like Green Bay, but I don't even know how successful he'd be there. I can't buy into him. Like I've looked at him and like my mind rankings, because I don't actually rank him, I've dropped him down below so many guys. And he just keeps falling in my head.
Do you like him in Kansas City?
Yeah, maybe. I think that's why I say it's like one of the few. It's one of the few places because of Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and like Stephon Diggs. I think he just needs somebody that's attracting so much attention that his route running with one-on-one is what would help him win. But I just get so nervous about these big, strong guys taking off his route. Who knows? I don't know. I'm off of him. I'm off Rashad Bateman.
See, from a fantasy perspective, Kansas City's my number 2 because, and the only reason I have him my number 2 and not my number 1 is because Tyreek's going to get his. Travis Kelce's obviously going to get his. And I think Edwards-Helaire is going to be more involved here in year 2. So my number 1, because I kind of disagree with you. I know what you're saying here, but man, the 2019 tape on Bateman is just unbelievable, especially compared to 2020. So my number 1 fantasy destination is Tennessee. Have you seen Tennessee Titans pass catchers outside of A.J. Brown outside of A.J. Brown because they lost Corey Davis and Johnny Smith. So This is kind of what you're talking about, though. That's why I think the Titans fit the mold of what you're saying, is because A.J. Brown is that receiver that can do a little bit of everything. The dude's a freight train with the ball. He moves like he shouldn't at the size he is. Remember that game against Baltimore last year when he should have been tackled, and then it took all 11 guys that he just drug into the end zone? As you're reading more tweets.
I'm reading about Terrace Marshall.
We're not talking about him.
No, but somebody just apparently he's dropping. It was reported that he's dropping due to injury concerns. Medical testing, which took place in early April in Indianapolis, and he continues to drop.
Sounds like a smokescreen for a team that wants him.
That's true.
Anyway, what I'm saying though is I think that the Titans are a good fit. Obviously, one, because they need a pass catcher, but you have A.J. Brown who can do everything, and you're adding Rashad Bateman, who I don't think really compares one way or another to Corey Davis, but I think A.J. Brown can do everything so well that you throw Bateman in there and you put him in that Titans offense that's not always relying on the passing game the way it is. They run the ball with Derrick Henry more than any other team runs with one specific guy. But it's crazy because A.J. Brown is still ultimately
he's psychopath.
He's fantasy relevant every single week.
I've always liked A.J. Brown. Obviously, he's had very good highlights. He made that crazy one-handed over the everybody catch. But the one play I'll always remember him for is I think it's of course I can't remember who it was against, but I think it was the Ravens. They ran a slant to him when they needed a touchdown, and I'm like, what was that? And he ran over 4 effing guys to somehow just wheel himself into the end zone. I will never forget that play. I was like astonished. I'm like, what was that stupid ass slant play they just ran? And then somehow he scores. Was that the Dolphins?
If you're watching on Twitter Live or YouTube, you'll see me shaking my head. If you're listening audio only, you will also be just laughing and shaking your head because that is the specific play that I described when you were reading about Terrace Marshall.
Oh,
and
sorry.
You once again just totally just ignored everything I was saying. This has become your MO.
Well, they're talking about you're gonna spill my drink. You're talking about Terrace Marshall. I mean, I was reading about Terrace Marshall. It was hard for me to listen because it was draft relevant, so I was trying to break some news.
Unbelievable. Let me ask you this hypothetical question, DJ. Let's say he goes to Tennessee or Kansas City. And let's say that Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle goes to a team like Philadelphia. Are you taking Bateman over one of those two, or the talent of those two trump that landing spot?
Ask the question again. Where are the other two going?
Let's just say one of them goes to Philly. Either of those two. Is there a world where you're taking Bateman over one of those two with that landing spot?
Yeah. I hate Jalen Hurts with a passion.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be interesting. Let's just say Bateman does go to Kansas City and Jalen Waddle goes to Philadelphia. That was a surefire thing that was happening in Dynasty League mock drafts right now where it could kind of flip. There's a decent chance that if something like that happens, Bateman's probably considered around that 105 to 107 area all of a sudden.
No, but
no, you just said yes. Because that's where Waddle was going to go.
Oh God, I would have him. Yeah, well, it depends. It all depends on the draft. It's hard to predict. If
that's why I said hypothetically, you're off your game ever since the kid came down with his teddy bear.
I'll watch him just right hook him on the screen.
Let's move on. You're out of your element. Let's move on to a not so ideal. We're gonna copy each other.
I hate Rashad Bateman though. It would be hard still for me to move him into that 1.05 to 1.07 range, almost no matter where he goes.
Fair enough. Well, let's just talk about where you're not going to draft him then.
Okay. Baltimore, because I think Lamar Jackson is a poopy. And literally, and figuratively, he sucks. He's a poopy, and he poopied in his pants in a game. I cannot believe that a wide receiver. Everybody's that's the place that they need one. That's the place that I think tons of people have been mocked towards.
Yeah,
that's
the problem.
Don't think Lamar Jackson can throw the football consistently.
That's the problem. It's almost so heavily mocked that Jesus is probably going to come true because it's the right move.
I hope it does.
For Baltimore.
Because I think people will draft him way too high, and it'll help me.
And you don't want him anyways, so you might as well. It's terrible though, because like from a real team perspective, like if you're a Ravens fan, you want the Ravens to draft Bateman because he's a receiver that you don't have. Even a guy like Marshall, that's a receiver you don't really have yet. So that's what's going to complement. That's what's going to give Lamar Jackson the best chance to succeed. But if you're not a Ravens fan, if you're a pure fantasy player, that is death. It just doesn't seem like a good spot. Maybe you catch lightning in a bottle. Maybe it clicks for Lamar Jackson and that offense does take the next step and the passing game starts clicking. If I'm a betting man, which I am, my money's on the other side of that. Like I talk about him going as early as like 105, 106. Man, if he goes to Baltimore and I'm sitting there at the end of the first round, I'm looking maybe at a guy like Elijah Moore who goes to like the Packers or something over him. That's how I sit on it.
That's what I want.
DJ, we've hit all 5 of our players. Do you have anything else you would like to add to this episode?
How many wide receivers do you bump up into the first round if they land with Aaron Rodgers? Like just getting that. Just throw out Patrick Mahomes for a second. Aaron Rodgers hasn't had a second guy for a long time. We've seen what he's done with a Randall Cobb, with Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, just all those, Donald Driver, like with multiple guys. You know, he can and has the ability to do it. He just doesn't have the wide receivers right now.
Yeah.
How many guys would you bump up into the first round if they go first round to like if the Packers sentence. I know it is a weird sentence to the Packers, like if it's just a random, like if it is Elijah Moore who's projected second round, Randall Moore, Terrace Marshall, whoever it could be, all those guys bump up to a first round pick, do they not?
I don't really disagree with that. Here's a name we haven't talked about yet, and a lot of people are considering him a first rounder in the draft. Kadarius Toney.
Yeah. Okay.
Like you think about him and you think about it from a dynasty perspective, you're probably not drafting him until if he goes anywhere else, and like a random team, late second, early third. And all of a sudden, if you bump him into a first round wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, and if Rashad Bateman goes to the Baltimore Ravens, you've got a debate.
I just think anybody who lands, and I am a Green Bay Packer fan, but at this point, anybody that would go to Green Bay in the first 2 rounds, if it was a wide receiver, you have to bump them up because that's like what Aaron Rodgers has been looking for so long, and he has the ability to just make them a top 10 wide receiver 100%. Along with Devontae.
We're gonna see some shifts in dynasty rankings as soon as that day 1 and day 2 of that draft are over. It's gonna be crazy.
It'll be fun.
Beautiful. Well, as always, check us out on Twitter. We're found at LoadedBox. Check out the website, loadedboxpodcast.com. We've got our NFL mock drafts, including our recently released 32-person mock drafts. Our 2021 NFL draft drinking game is now live. Make sure you check that out. Share that with your friends. Let's all get loaded on that Thursday. Our NFL draft player profiles, our dynasty rankings, our dynasty mocks, everything you need is found there. We're excited for our next episode. DJ, I would say it's probably one of our favorites of the year. We're going to be talking NFL draft prop bets, and it's going to be us two along with another degenerate in Elliot Christ. We're going to be doing that on Monday of draft week, so make sure you check that out. We're available everywhere you check out podcast. DJ, send us out.
Bye.